Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to Aussie Fish Keeping. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at 7 aquarium plants that don't need substrate. So all 7 of these plants are super easy to keep, they're super easy to care for, and obviously a big bonus is they don't actually need substrate to grow. So that's super useful if you have a bare bottom tank or if you have tanks like these ones where I just have like a small layer of substrate. But yeah, I guess without any further ado, let's just jump straight into today's video with the first plant on our list. So as for our first plant today, we have one that I don't think is going to come as a surprise to anyone. We have Java Fern. So Java Fern is a beautiful aquarium plant. It's got nice, thick, sort of like rough green leaves. So I've actually got some Java Fern literally right down here in this tank. So I might just quickly pull it out and show you. Let me move my phone. So this is basically what Java Fern looks like. If you don't know what it is, I'm sure there's going to be videos playing. But yeah, like I said, it's got a nice green leaf. It's sort of like rough, like it's a pretty thick, crinkly leaf. So Java Fern is obviously a rhizomial plant, and that's one of the reasons it doesn't actually need substrate to grow in your aquarium. So if you don't know what a rhizomial plant is, I'll get our Java Fern again and I'll show you. But basically, what the rhizome is it's this little like thing here, and basically all of the roots pop out of this thing, all of the leaves pop out of this thing, and a bunch of nodes come out. With this rhizome, you can actually cut this up into little sections and it will actually grow a little Java Fern from each. Although Java Fern does actually also produce pups straight off its leaves as well, so you actually don't really need to be cutting the rhizome whatsoever. But yeah, because these plants actually have a rhizome, they don't actually like substrate whatsoever, so it's actually best to keep them out of substrate, just because if that rhizome is in substrate, it can actually rot, which can obviously kill the plants. So Java Fern is a super versatile plant. It can go with a variety of fish species, just because, like I said, it's got a super tough, like rough leaf. So it can actually go with things like goldfish, which are notorious for eating plants, and I actually have seen a lot of people keep it successfully with African cichlids. Although if you are trying to keep it with African cichlids, you're gonna need like a nice big bunch of it, otherwise they're just gonna rip it to shreds. But obviously Java Fern can also go with any of your smaller tropical fish as well, and it actually does go well in pretty much any water parameters. So as for the water parameters it can withstand, it can basically be kept in a temperature anywhere between 20 to 30 degrees Celsius, which is around 68 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit, and it can go in a pH anywhere between 6 to 7.5, but I have actually seen it, and I've actually kept it in higher pHs myself, so around 7.5 to 8, and it has thrived as well. However, in my opinion, it does produce a lot more pups and it grows a lot faster in that lower, more acidic pH. So as well as that, this stuff actually goes well in well-shaded aquariums with lots of other plants, and it actually does not like direct light on its leaves, just because its leaves can actually be damaged by that direct light. And I've actually got a bit of a, where'd it go? Here is an example here of a damaged leaf, so you can see. Let's try and get a nice, oh yeah. Yeah, it's not looking good. It's just like super yellow, it's almost translucent, like you can pretty much see my face through there, I think. And it's got like brown spots and dots and everything. So yeah, this is the sort of leaf you'll get if it is in direct light. But yeah, with that being said, Java Fern is definitely a super great aquarium plant if you want a no substrate plant. Moving on to the next plant on our list, we have another super common one. We have Anubias. So I've literally got a little Anubias right here, and I didn't actually find that in my aquarium until like the other day. I was just digging through this massive pile of algae, and I just found like this massive Anubias in there, so it was like absolutely thriving in there. So it's definitely another plant that doesn't like direct light and actually thrives in lower light. And it is another one that is actually super hardy and has super like thick leaves, so it can go with a variety of more aggressive fish. And if you get like a nice big Anubias, it can even go with things like peacock bass and those sorts of big fish. But once again, it does do well with the smaller tropical fish as well. So as for the water parameters for this stuff, it's super versatile. It can go in a temperature anywhere between 22 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is around 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And it can go in a pH anywhere between 6 to 8. The only downside to Anubias is it is pretty slow growing. So this absolutely massive one you can see here behind me, that has probably taken about, I'd say, I don't even know, 8 to 10 months to get that big. I think I got that from one of my friends like quite a while ago. But yeah, with that being said, Anubias is definitely another great no substrate aquarium plant. Moving on to the next plant on my list, it's another one I have in literally all of my tanks here behind me. It's foxtail. So I find that foxtail is best when it's kept as a floating plant. So obviously it's not a floating plant like duckweed or redroot floaters where it has its roots in the water, but it basically just floats around, and yeah, it doesn't need substrate, it doesn't have roots or anything like that. It just literally just floats around and looks cool. And it spreads super fast, so it's actually a super fast growing plant as well. And this stuff is a little bit more fragile than the rest, so it can only really be kept with things like guppies or other tropical fish like that. But it's definitely a super great plant for shrimp as well, just because it has a lot of little like nooks and crannies that the shrimp can go in and pick out all sorts of like biofilms and things like that. So as for the water parameters, this stuff can withstand a temperature anywhere between 18 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is around 64 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And the pH should be anywhere between 5 to 7. So obviously it does actually prefer growing in that low, more acidic water and more tropical temperatures. This plant, I will say though, can be super annoying when you've got like algae growing in your tank. So you'll notice in this tank, I don't have much foxtail. I've got a little bit, but there's not much. And the only reason is because when it has algae in it, it's so annoying to get the algae out. It just rips the plant apart and it can smother it super easily. So this is a plant that does like higher lighting. So if you have lots of algae growing all around it, that can smother it. So you do definitely want to be careful when it comes to that. But yeah, besides that, foxtail is probably one of my favorites, and it's definitely a great no substrate aquarium plant, and I would highly recommend it. Moving on to the next plant on our list, we have guppy grass. So guppy grass, in my opinion, is super similar to like Alodia and Seswastatang or Subswastatang. I'm not too sure how to say it. It's like Seswastatang because it's just sort of just floats around at the bottom of your aquarium. It doesn't really have really big roots, but it does have roots that do actually go into substrate if you have substrate. But it doesn't need substrate whatsoever. It's similar to Alodia because it does look, in my opinion, I mean, it looks like Alodia, like a really thin-leafed Alodia. But yeah, guppy grass is a super great aquarium plant. In the short time I've had it, it's like absolutely tripled in size, so it grows super fast in the right water parameters. The only thing is it's super fragile, so you can't keep it with any like fast-flowing filters, just because it can be sucked up by those filters and it can clog the filters and just get like chopped up. And you also can't keep it with more aggressive fish just because they'll eat it and tear it up, and that's obviously not great. But at the moment I'm keeping it with some Denios. I've got some golden eye cichlids in there and it's absolutely thriving. So as for the water parameters for this stuff, it should be kept in a temperature anywhere between 20 to 26 degrees Celsius, which is about 68 to 79 degrees Fahrenheit, and a pH anywhere between 6 to 8. But yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say about it. It's a super cool plant. It is a little bit harder to find and it can be a little bit more expensive when you do find it, particularly here in Australia, but I would highly recommend just getting some if you do find it. It grows super well and you can just grow it and sell it back to your local fish shops and pet stores, and you can sell it privately as well. But yeah, guppy grass is another plant I would highly recommend if you are looking for a no substrate plant. Moving on to the next plant on our list, we actually do have a moss finally. We have Java moss. So Java moss, I didn't really want to put on this list, but I sort of had to just because it is a great plant to have that doesn't need substrate. But I also didn't really want to put it on here because it is a moss and most moss doesn't need substrate. But yeah, Java moss is a great beginner friendly plant. It's super easy to care for. It likes low light intensities and high light intensities. It really doesn't matter. Although you will find if it is in higher light, it'll grow more stringy, so it'll be like very thin and it'll usually grow outwards, whereas if you have it in lower light, it'll become more bushy and it will go in like a nice big bunch. This stuff is great for breeding fish as well, so if you have guppies or cherry shrimp or any sort of light bearer or small tropical fish, Java moss is practically essential to have just because it provides space for babies to hide and it provides space for fish to spawn in. So as for water parameters for this stuff, it likes a temperature of around 15 to 30 degrees Celsius, which is around 59 to 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And then as for pH, it likes slightly acidic to neutral pH, so anywhere between 6 to 7.5 should do. But yeah, Java moss is definitely another super great no substrate aquarium plant. Moving on to the next plant on our list, we have a stem plant. We have kabomba. So I actually mentioned kabomba in a few videos ago. I think it was the fastest growing aquarium plants, and I was actually calling it cambomba. But yeah, I do know now it's kabomba, not cambomba. So I actually don't know why I was calling it cambomba. I think I just read it wrong. So I do actually have limited experience with this stuff. I haven't kept it too much, but I definitely have kept it before. And when I did keep it, I actually kept it in bare bottom tanks, and I literally just put like a rock over the bottom. So I'd have a stem and I just put a rock on the bottom to weight it down, and it would actually grow for me, and it'd grow super well actually. So kabomba is actually a very hardy plant, so it can go with practically any fish as long as your fish aren't gonna like absolutely destroy it like African cichlids. But it can definitely go with things like goldfish and all sorts of other tropical fish. So kabomba is a plant that doesn't really need highlight, but it does grow best in highlight. And that's obviously same with a lot of plants, but with kabomba, if you have it in lower light, it'll actually be more of a green plant, and then in higher light, it'll have more of like a reddy sort of orangish tinge to it. So as for water parameters for this stuff, you should keep it in a temperature of around 20 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 68 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And then your pH should be anywhere between 6 to 7.5. So another great thing about kabomba is it's super similar to the foxtail. So it's a super bushy plant, and it's great for cherry shrimp and live bearers, just for their young to hide in, and the cherry shrimp can just like fossick around in it. And on top of that, it's super easy to access. So this is probably the most common plant besides Anubias and Java fern and Java moss. So yeah, I guess it's like the 4th most common plant on this list, and yeah, it's like readily available. But yeah, with that being said, kabomba is another super great no substrate aquarium plant. Moving on to the next plant on our list, we have another rhizomial plant. We have bulbitis. So in my opinion, bulbitis is probably the coolest looking plant on this list. I've had a little bit of trouble growing it before, but I definitely have had success. It's just been hard to get. But yeah, bulbitis I do have in this aquarium behind me here. I'll see if I can like block out this light and we can take a nice little look. I don't know if you can see, it's right there. So this stuff is very similar to Anubias in how it grows. It does like lower light and slow flow. And I've actually found it does super great in tannic water, like low pH water, like this water behind me. So bulbitis, like I said before, is a super cool looking plant. It literally just looks like a fern that you'd find like growing in the forest. I do actually believe it is a fern, like it is an aquatic fern species, so that's probably why. But yeah, as for water parameters for this stuff, it can go in a temperature of around 21 to 27 degrees Celsius, which is around 70 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And your pH should be anywhere between 5.5 to 7.5. So the only problem I find with bulbitis is as soon as it's in like a super bright environment, its leaves begin to like turn black at the tips and shrivel up. So I'm starting to find that on this particular plant behind me, and once it does that, it's super hard to stop doing that in my opinion. If you guys have any tips with growing bulbitis, make sure to leave them down below, because it's definitely a great plant. I absolutely love it, and I'd love to grow it better. But yeah, with that being said, I mean, bulbitis is another super great aquarium plant if you are looking for a no substrate option. So that is actually going to bring us to the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope I helped you guys find a new aquarium plant for your no substrate tank. Obviously, all of these plants are super easy to care for. They don't need substrate, and they just look like extremely cool to have in your aquarium. They're particularly great for like a bare bottom tank. Like I keep a lot of my guppies bare bottom just because it's easier for me to keep clean and breed. So all of these plants are great plants for those sorts of setups. But yeah, if you did enjoy today's video, make sure to go down and subscribe. And while you're down there, smash the like button and comment your thoughts on today's video. I always love going down there and reading them all, and I reply back to every comment I get. Also, if you are looking for any fish, make sure to go check out my website, aussiefishkeeping.com. I'll leave it linked in the description. But yeah, with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all in that next video.